these are not, they're not, anyway, you get the point. That's what I would add, a little bit of that. Not too much, but a little bit of the yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. You gotta find the moon. You gotta be not nice to her.
Steph, good with the Juliet. Yeah.
I just started it today. Being on.
Actually, if it ended at the end of the first act, we probably would actually root for him. He's certainly the most charismatic figure in that whole first act, is Edmund. And you have to kind of play it that way. He's the king. And again, though, I'll say the same thing as I say to Francesco. Of course he's not nice, of course. But you have to feel with Edmund that he will consume the world. You have to feel that he will consume everything. He will take on the devil. He will take on whatever it takes to win everything. Now nature, stand up for bastards. You know what I mean? That is a call. That is defying fate. That is saying, I'm a bastard, and stand up, we're the best. We're taking over the world. And he almost does. He almost does. So we have to feel that power. And you got some of it. But I would go farther into that sense of being against everybody else and challenging the gods and challenging them and making them stand up for you. You don't ask gods, you don't ask nature to stand up for you. You stand up for nature. But he's saying, nature, you stand up for me. That's how arrogant the guy is. That's how self-assured. He's saying, stand up for me. I am the guy. And he's the sexiest person on the stage for the first half of King Lear. I'd say almost the first half.
Well, he's like Satan in Paradise Lost, if anybody knows Paradise Lost. He's Satan. He's the devil. But in Paradise Lost, you feel for the fact that he's been cheated.
Yeah.
And he's going to get it. He's going to go for it.
Yeah.
Can I just say something technical?
Yeah, please.
You have an incredible command of your beautiful voice. You totally understand it. But you have to make us understand it. And what I mean by that is, you can't chop up phrases. I thought you were following commas. You were stopping at the end of the lines, and the audience doesn't process it. And I mean, I'll be happy to go over with you, but exactly what I mean. But once you break a phrase, we lose it. And that's where people say, I don't understand Shakespeare. It's because the actor may understand it, but let us understand. I mean, great work, but just a little tweak.
Okay. There's some scenes with Edmund and Goneril and Reagan. I was just thinking about scenes and possibilities. Reagan and Goneril, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm just thinking out loud to possible scene there.
I have a list of all the scenes we could look at later.
Evan, you continue to grow. Again, to me, some of the best Shakespeare and classical actors are people that have never done it.
People that don't know what they're doing.
But have a sense of, no, because basically they go, let's try it. Let's not worry about all this stuff. Meaning, a lot of these institutional places, you don't necessarily get the classics in Shakespeare until the third year. Why? Why does everybody put it off? Well, This is the basics. You know, this is the stuff you should have this your first year. You know, the first year you should jump right into the Shakespeare. So like it should be your beginning work. And the only reason in this country it's not, is because most of the great teachers of our country and directors were scared shitless of it. So obviously, if they were, it had to be put off the third year. And even then, you didn't get it sometimes. You know? That's the only reason. I don't think anybody would argue with that. That's the only reason. Now we're beginning to catch up now. Now people are beginning to not be so scared of this stuff. We've had more experience, and we don't have to hire English people to do it anymore. 25 years ago, that was it. Bring the English in to teach us. Horseshit. You have to be basically, you know, and you've got a sense of it, you've got a feeling of it. But a line, Evan, like, pardon me, thou bleeding piece of earth. What a line that is. That's your first line. To me, it's not just pardon me, thou bleeding piece of earth. I mean, look at the potential that you can get out of a line like that. Pardon me, thou bleeding piece of earth. I mean, I'm trying not to give you a line reading, but I'm giving you a line reading. The point is, bleeding, thy bleeding piece of earth. The meaning in the sound of those words is where the juice and the reality comes through. It's more real that way than, pardon me, that bleeding piece of earth. That's not as real. In television terms, it would be real. But this isn't television. You have to really get the reality through the sounds and the juice of a phrase like that. And Mark Antony isn't good at it. He's brilliant at it. See, most of these characters are not good at it. They are brilliant. I'm not talking about you as actors. The characters are brilliant. Edmund is brilliant at his elocution. You know what I mean? That's part of the reality of the character, that they love their spit. And they love the language, that they dream up these words. That's the reality of Mark Antony working those plebeians in that crowd. They can't do what he can do. They can't do it. They go, oh my God. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like any great orator. And we don't have them today in politics. We don't have them. That's why Obama won, man. That's why he won. He made the others look so bad.
Don't get me started.
He's a great orator. That's where he's at. Which makes him very disappointing, because how can you beat that oratory? He's his worst enemy. He gets everybody all excited. You can't top what he does when he speaks. Whatever he says, people go, yeah, take me there. He's fabulous. He's fabulous. But there's no, how, you know what I'm saying? Well, Anthony has that.
Just a question, who did you send that line to?
To his mentor's dead body.
His mentor's dead body, and what does it look like?
It's a bleeding mess.
24, how many, 20, remember how many?
Yes, that.
He's a pool of blood, and he's your mentor. You love him more than anybody else in the world. Everything else is brilliant, but you always, for some reason, are afraid to do that.
It's a challenge. I got to work on that particular
Yeah, you
part.
got to work. And you've gone through it. I know you're a fireman.
Don't bring back memories.
No, come on, we talked about it, right?
Yeah.
But it's brilliant. It's brilliant. You've made it your own.
Great. Gloria, your portrait gets better and better because you get more organic. It's part of you now, you know. And you have a good balance between, I think, the poetry and seeming natural. You don't lose that sense of the poetry, and that's hard to do. You get a good balance there. You could even go farther with some of the poetry, but it's good. And here's the thing, though, you're getting much better in terms of just feeling more confident, which I'm really excited about. I get very good to see The whole thing was played like this. You know what I'm saying? The whole thing, and what you're doing is restricting your expression by having your arm. It's like saying, it's like covering yourself. It's like protecting yourself. So you want to open it up. There's nothing wrong in doing this occasionally, but you don't want to do it the whole. You know what I mean? It's physical. You want to always be aware somehow. You don't want it, I don't know if you even knew you did that. But you have to be aware, folks, of everything you do. It's a Western tradition. It's happening. Yeah, that's tradition, America, understatement, cool, man, cool. So you can't, everything can't be like that.
She's also making a point to 100 people in the room, not only to him. She's making sure they hear what she's saying. So, Tom, your gumbo is extremely organic and natural to you. Excellent. And very un-cartoony. Often gumbo and masa are done like cartoons. They're kind of sticky in a way. Not, but sometimes. I thought you did. And yeah, when you weren't sitting, you were great. I don't know what this sitting routine is. I think you're too old, that's the problem.
Yeah, okay.
You get tired, yeah. But it gets more natural and all the time. I'd like to see you get more going now, not just that.
I'm working at it, working.
I want to see more.
This is a comedian, and this is somebody who's talking to the audience too, to get laughs.
I know.
So
That's like the one serious kind of monologue
well,
part.
no, of course,
Little.
that's a serious moment, but don't forget, he's winking at the audience, a lot.
I know, okay.
Yeah, and there could be a wink in that. In that speech, there could also be some kind of wink there too. I think all these notes are not just for you, for specific actors, but for all of us. I hope that's right. Christine, such power you gave with that character from that work, like Patty Chayefsky. Wonderful, wonderful sense of power. I thought you captured the passion of the character. And my question would be only, where's the quiet part of that speech? Is there a quiet part to that speech? And by the way, it's great to go through and do what you did and get that whole thing. And then once you've gotten it, then see where the other part would be. You know what I mean? Maybe do the whole thing more quietly to see what works in the speech for that part, because it's all on that one kind of, not all, but you know what I mean? It's all pretty much that way. You'd like to see kind of more peaks and valleys.
And that's exactly what happens in the next part of that.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? When you do the whole movie, you're going to find, that maybe you would take that whole thing that way, because the next part you do go down. But my feeling is, even within that, you can find more peaks and valleys, even if it's just a moment that you would go down, rather than the whole thing being, and Mario the Brutus, I think is again very natural to you. And he's talking to Cassius, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that scene that you're doing keeps growing. And that speech makes again, you seem to have gotten a balance between poetry and very natural, as I hear it. Almost, I would call it un-Shakespearean. But that to me is great Shakespeare, when you can get the poetry and get that sense of like I'm improvising it, and yet you've got poetry enough that I'm carrying. there are some things that you might, again, as you said, Ed, tweak a couple of things in a phrase or two, because just because you're natural doesn't mean you don't heighten a few things there, and I can't remember exactly
Yeah,
what, but
I think we need we need to work on a little bit, just here and there, but maybe, and Mark is right, it's a perfect balance between use, natural speech, and the heightened speech. But you can, here and there. Shakespeare's about words, the bottom line.
the words, yeah. CJ, the editing machine seemed very natural to you, and you really were talking. I thought you were talking and listening to the person you were speaking to in that scene. Yeah, if you draw more, well, you're getting more familiar. Yeah, yeah. And again, it may not be in that scene or that speech, but with the editing machine, I would look for places where things go, you know, they kind of go off kilter, you know, and become not naturalistic at all. Where speech starts to take off into an expressionistic. I don't know if it's there, you know, but I would look at that for some of that in that play. You know, physically and vocally. Pretty. Bravo. I thought your material, did you write that? Yes. Extremely personal and very well felt. And I would call it organic to you. You made it your own, and very strong, emotionally very strong. Where are the jokes in it, though?
There is.
I'm sorry? There aren't any? I think there are. The reason I say that is, there are always good jokes in King Lear, in Medea. And the comedies, great comedies always have serious things about them. It's never just serious. It's never just funny. It's always great acting, great, you know, look for things that are ironic. Look for the absurdities in what your character's saying. That way you bring other colors into what seems only tragic. No one wants to watch just tragedy. No one wants to see just comedy. Usually they want to see, particularly in contemporary work, you talk about contemporary acting and contemporary writing. Today, if you look at contemporary plays, you won't find comedies. You won't find dramas in the way we used to in the 1950s when I grew up. We went to, my grandmother would take me to and Ed, we used to go to the Gene Kerr comedy, Don't Eat the Daisies, you know, which became Rock Hudson and Deborah, you know. There was always the hit comedy. Neil Simon was big in the late 50s, in the early 60s. There was always a Neil Simon very, very big comedy. And it was just comedy for the most part. I mean, it was great, but it was comedy. And people went just to celebrate a birthday. You went, you took your aunt, you had a great evening. Now you put a comedy on Broadway, the critics will kill you. They call it one-dimensional, they call it, you know, they don't appreciate, they want things that have dark undertone, comedies that have, you know, and they want dramas that are dramedies, that have comedies, that actors in dramas that have a sense of, you know, a little bit of comedy. You know, you go to see off-Broadway, it's very hard to find a very serious play off-Broadway. They're all kind of entertaining. Even the dramas have to be, you know, you go to Playwrights Horizons, you go to all these places, they all have to have an element of comedy, these new plays. that are dramas. They have to be entertaining. They're scared to be just heavy or just light, usually.
There's that cliche years ago,
Yeah.
a comedy writer who would walk back and forth on opening night and count the laughs.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd just count the laughs, they're laughing, good.
Sure.
So there's a comedy.
Yeah. George Abbott, the famous director, who lived up to be 100 years old. How many do know George Abbott? A few. Okay. That's okay. Not anymore, though. Now you know George Abbott. You should look him up. One of the great directors, writers of the American stage in the last 100 years. More than 100. But he used to have a whistle on, he was one of the great Broadway directors. And he wrote plays as well, co-wrote, and he had a whistle. And he used the whistle in rehearsals. Every time there was a laugh, he'd blow the whistle, so the actors would know that's where the laugh is. They'd get used to it. That was his technique.
But you know, that was Uta Hawkins' favorite director of all people.
Yes, because he knew his stuff. He was a craftsman. He was a total craftsman. No bullshit. He absolutely knew everything. He knew how to stage. He knew how to get a laugh on a line, what an actor should do to turn to get the laugh, how to walk to get the laugh, the timing on it. All that he knew and demanded that actors get it, rather than, I don't feel it, man. Why do I do that, Mr. Abbott? What are you making me do that for? Somebody asked him that once, it's a true story, and Abbott said, why? To keep your job. How was that? Ooh, excuse me. Yeah, that's right. So, okay. Anyway, Brian, the Amelia, wonderful sense of the earth and lustiness of that woman that you give. Yeah, that you bring yourself to that, I have to say that.
I was so in my head today because not 30 minutes before we had just broken down the poetry. So
Yes.
that was all, I was seeing slashes in my head of like where we were.
Yeah, but again, she's a wonderful singer. But we were breaking it down.
We were breaking down syllables, so I was a little
Yes.
cerebral today.
Yes.
But you gotta go through that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it was good.
Yeah.
I felt that.
Noah, your Richard, is much less shtick, meaning you're actually making him more of a person using yourself and less trying to do shtick with it. And that makes it so much more watchable, makes you look like a better actor, and you have a sense of the flow of the language and everything else.
Even the limping that you were overdoing the limping was great. I mean, that was just so, that you make it.
That wasn't acting.
Are you still?
Yeah.
Because he's 40 today. That might be perfect for your character.
I thought you were so unself-conscious about doing a very self-conscious thing, which Richard could do.
I thought it was just. I think it's just his arm that's. I think it's just his arm that's all messed up. But yeah.
Adriana, right? A good part for you. What's at stake for the character for her in that scene? For Adriana, what is at stake for her in that scene?
The stake is that she needs
Comedy
to find
writers.
out what's going on. She's beside herself, and
Right.
may it please your grace, and she's beholding to, he dictated to her life to a sense, so she's going to him and she's trying to be nice to him, but she needs his help desperately because she wants, what the hell's going on?
Where's my husband?
I think,
That's with my husband.
I think the hard part of what we're doing in the circle is I've given you a real challenge to, block yourself. Sometimes that takes a